Hello everyone and welcome to our new episode of podcast. On today's special occasion, here us with our beloved sir, and he is the H.O.D of Mass Communication and Journalism.
Dr. Abu Munir is began his career as a journalist but shifted over to teaching mass communication and journalism in 2001 when he joined the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism in Siliguri College. He is PhD from Tata Institute of Social Science and he is interested in digital media, film studies and media theories.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and a delight to speak to you. And I'm very happy and thanks again.
Thank you, sir. It's our privilege to have you in our podcast. So, sir, I want to move for a question. So, sir, our first question is that, sir, can you share a little bit about your teaching philosophy and approach? How do you create an engaging and inclusive learning environment for your students?
That's an interesting question. And the first thing which I try to keep in mind teaching at the undergraduate level is to remember always that here we have a group of students who are just out of school. And they are disciplined in a rather restricted environment in school. And the first thing to remind them is that college is not school. There's a degree of flexibility and teachers are more like friends. And to create a very friendly teacher-student ambience and also to encourage participation-based learning. And I also often, keep on reminding myself to put myself in the shoes of my students in order to understand if they were able to grasp a certain topic under discussion or not. The moot point is to have a very friendly, flexible approach towards teaching at the college level.
Sir, my second question is, we often see many people are engaging in social media and the social media gaining lots of popularity among youth. So sir, my second question is, what are the future of print media in digital world and its challenge and opportunities?
Yes, as a former journalist and a teacher of mass communication and journalism, we are certainly concerned about some of the trends, especially from the perspective of the future of print journalism. And when private television came in a big way, 24-hour news channels, there was much talk that perhaps newspapers were under threat in front of 24 hours television news, especially news channels. However, that did not happen. Newspapers survived. Some of the revenue shifted to television, but we still have newspapers coming to us every morning. At this stage, however, things look a little bleak for newspapers because basically newspapers function they have two main functions. One is information dissipation and just providing what happened where when. And the second is the news analysis interpretation. As far as the first function is concerned, there's little the newspaper can provide new because you have information at your fingertips with the smartphone in this digital world, in this always online world. Yeah. So the newspapers do not break the news anymore. And random and continuous use of the smartphone has also resulted in people losing the ability to read or to concentrate on a particular article.
Sir, you are one of the experienced teachers overall in Siliguri College. Could you please tell us what are the most critical skills or qualities a successful teacher should be possessed?
Yeah, so this back to a question on teaching. Yeah, as I said, it's a very diversified, it's a field of diversified skills, and this also matters on what is the subject domain, what exactly is the teacher teaching. I mean, the approach in science is different from liberal arts and social sciences, even commerce. So a lot depends on what is the domain of the area of your expertise. Having said that, yes, I must say that teaching is something which comes naturally. To a great degree, it's a natural skill. If you look at me, I personally never dreamt, even in my wildest dreams, that I would one day end up as a teacher. But when I did become a teacher, I started to enjoy it. And the one special thing about teaching is it always it keeps you new. You always meet new batches every year, and times change, and you always find yourself relevant. That's a very interesting thing. Yeah, I think that teaching is, besides having a very proper grasp of your subject, which can only come through a deep ingrained learning process, because the teacher at first is basically a learner, okay, and this constant learning process, it goes a lot. It does a lot in improving the teachers, in the way the teachers teach effectively. Yeah, so ability to communicate, to speak on a wide variety of subjects, to have patience, and to strike a friendly chord with your students. I mean, these are some of the basic skills which I believe every teacher should have.
So people say that media shapes the mind of people. So sir, my second question is, how would you describe the role of media in today's society, and how has it evolved over the past decade?
Yeah, that's a very relevant and important question. The truth is, today we are living in a mediated world. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that media has an all-pervading influence or dominance in the way we lead, or in the way we go on with our day-to-day lives. With the advent of digital media, this trend has become more pronounced. I mean, even for little things, we turn to the smartphone for small, simple, little answers, which you could have which you could have got by asking anyone on the road, on the street, or anyone. Little tidbits of information. For example, I want to go to a pharmacist shop. I'm new to a locality. I want to go to a pharmacist shop. In the olden days, what we'd do is basically we'd go and ask someone on the road, or a neighbor, or the security guard to instruct us as to where we can go to a pharmacist shop. Here, the first thing we do is to look at Google or the smartphone location. So, even for our day-to-day course, we are heavily dependent on a media platform on the smartphone. Okay, and all the information that we get from various media platforms, from television, from the internet, from the print media, and finally from the smartphone, we form our perceptions of the world, our opinions, based on mediated information, means based on second-hand or third-hand experiences, which is very different from what people would do around 3 or 4 decades back, when people would really venture out into the physical reality to ascertain facts, information, and build their opinions on their day-to-day personal experiences. Now the physical world has receded. Physical space, somehow it has been replaced by digital space as far as man's interaction with the environment around him is concerned, and that has far-reaching, repercussions, effects, whatever you call it. And I mean, even 20 or 30 years back, we lived in the world of singular truths. Okay, we got some information from maybe Doordarshan or the channel or the newspapers. Okay, and you had a singular idea, a singular narrative of the world. Here we have information, true, false, half true, coming in from various perspectives, various dimensions, and that I just would like to refer to Catherine Weiner, a senior editor at The Guardian, who said, it's like a cluster bomb of information. I mean, in the olden days, a journalist, let's assume the work of a journalist, the newspaper, I mean, the day began collecting news, editing them, selecting them, editing them, designing them on the pages, and then it came to an end. The edition had an end. Now, in today, the process of updating news, information continues. There is no finite, area, a finite space which journalists deal today. It's a constant process of information gathering, updating, editing, checking, cross-checking. So that's the biggest difference from journalism today, from information gathering, information dissemination today, in compared to what it was 3 or 4 decades back. So I think that's a huge, change everywhere, right?
So yes, next question I would like to ask is like a core question. As a student, I know what is mass communication journalism, but I want to ask sir, as a teacher, what is the actually mass communication and journalism, and what is the difference between this subject, mass communication, and other subject?
Yes, there needs to be a greater understanding of this, vocation, this subject vocation. Initially, we had, especially in Siliguri College, when we began our course, we called it journalism. But journalism alone, journalism per se is, I personally believe, is not enough to sustain undergraduate degree course, as far as the academic perspective of the domain is concerned. So, in 2005, we called it mass communication and journalism to broaden the area of the subject domain. Yeah. So, it's also nowadays we also have the trend of media studies. Some call it media studies, even media science. And there are other branches, subsets from the broad area of mass communication, such as public relation, advertising, and film studies. My perception is when we run a course, we have 2 fundamental, basic objectives. What is the purpose of the course? Is the course meant to prepare professional media persons, professional journalists, or advertising copywriters, or public relation professionals, whatever? Are we producing professional media people, or are we concentrating on media as a subject, its effect on people, its repercussions on society? Okay, so the basic approach when we deal with a subject domain is to understand the fundamental objective, is what is the purpose. And I believe in India and in most of the universities and colleges where this course is taught, there is a certain degree of confusion or certain degree of ambivalence as far as this aspect is concerned. People are not sure, the syllabus is not sure. Are we preparing journalists, or are we training people to understand the media as a whole, besides being media professionals? Like the biggest example I can give you to illustrate my point is about film studies. We have the film training institutes, like in Pune, in Kolkata, Satyajit Ray Film Training Institute, where the students are basically taught to be film professionals, cinematography, direction, editing, whatever. And we also have a course in Jadavpur University which is called MA in Film Studies. The film studies focuses on understanding cinema, on initiating students into the language of cinema, into the effect of cinema, into the way how cinema reflects society, history, culture, and to decode cinema. Whereas the courses in the film training institutes, they concentrate on making film professionals. I think that degree of clarity should have been there in our course, so that the syllabus should have been structured in that manner, so that we would have a clear perception as are we looking to create media professionals, or are we looking into media studies in general.
So if the students wants to make career in this field, so what's the process they needs to apply? What's the process they needs to?
Yeah, there is one very positive aspect, and unfortunately there is one negative aspect to this question. The positive aspect is mass communication as a whole, as I mentioned some time back, encompasses various other professional domains such as ad copywriting, public relation, film script writing, television news writing, television anchoring, even photography, and of course reporting and editing. That is, the number of media houses are limited, especially print media. So you have to be really good in writing, editing, in your conceptual powers and in your creativity to get a foothold in the media industry. Yeah, and that's the less encouraging, or rather negative aspect to this question. And the positive aspect is digital media and the various digital platforms has opened a plethora of opportunities for truly creative people. So if you work hard, if you are sincere, if you are imaginative, you have something new to offer, and you are not getting a right platform, the digital world, a platform like YouTube, it offers these newfound opportunities for truly creative, ambitious media, aspiring media professionals. So that's the positive thing. But let me tell you, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. Of course, you have other, career opportunities as a media professionals. You can even join big corporations as public relation officers. You can join the government as in the government public relation or field publicity department, or even in big organizations such as the railways or the Indian Steel Company, Iron Steel Company, and various NTPC. From time to time, they do recruit public relation officials. Nowadays, they are called corporate communication officials. Okay, so those career opportunities are there, and one point is a media graduate is still a graduate. So whatever career options are open for a career for a graduate, that's open for the media graduate as well, right? So, but like in any creative field, the challenges are significant when you aspiring media professional wants to really build a successful career.
So today there is a sense of urgency among youth. They want information as soon as possible. So sir, my second question is, how can a journalist balance the need for speed with the responsibility to verify information before publishing?
Yes, this is a big challenge which journalists face nowadays. In fact, I was referring to Catherine Weiner, editor of The Guardian, and she was focusing on this particular issue at a lecture which she delivered, where she discussed the multitasking challenges which a journalist today faces. Yes, so on one hand, a journalist has to be committed to truth and objectivity. On the other hand, he has to keep up with the pace of the times. One advantage which the present day journalist has, which was not available to journalists 3 or 4 decades back in the 1970s or 80s, is that he has this entire, backup, the support from the digital devices. And something which was not available before. In the olden days, in 70s and 80s, sub-editors in newspapers would have to rely on physical data like books and a list of ministers or other information, which they would have to refer from time to time to ensure the authenticity of the information and the fact which they are addressing. Now, today, it's a challenge, but again, the challenge is more for people, for digital journalists than traditional print journalists. In a newspaper today, besides the traditional print journalist team, we also have the another team to look at the address the online editions of every newspapers. So the online edition team, they have to constantly keep on working, updating information, verifying facts, and they have to be the first one. Everyone tries to be, there's a pressure to be the first one to break that certain news or give that little update, the latest update. So it's indeed a challenge, but it's like, as I said, it's a challenge which digital journalists have to face, and they have the advantage of their digital devices and the backup of the digital platforms.
Next question, sir, I would like to ask again regarding the subject. So those students who is looking for their BA and MA in the field of mass communication and journalism, as a teacher, what are the career options in the field of mass communication?
Yeah, I just mentioned this some time back, that obviously you have, besides hardcore journalism, we have, you can go into the field of advertising if you are creative, like copywriting, and there's photography, there's public relation, nowadays it's called corporate communication functions, and we also have other emerging areas such as, in fact, these areas have been there for the last 15 years, so it's hardly appropriate to call them emerging, like content writing, technical writing, and you also have independent, the option of becoming independent professionals using online digital platforms such as YouTube or other such platforms where you can showcase your talent, gain views, create a network, and also make some money. So yes, the options have always been limited for this field, but of late, while the options in print journalism may have gone down a bit, but there are other options coming up, and certainly journalism graduate today, if he is really ready to work hard, if he is creative and imaginative and hardworking, he will certainly have a lot of options to choose from, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be successful as a media professional.
How can educator integrate media literacy in fact-checking skill into the curriculum to foster responsible media consumption?
Yeah, this is a huge problem today, and I think it's not entirely up to media teachers, educators. There's a lot of work to be done, and as I said, it's a major disrupting, aspect of the way media functions today, especially the digital media. Yeah, see, a lot of information there. I mean, when I look back to my journalist days, when we would edit the copies, guided by our seniors, we would take so much care, utmost care, to ensure that the facts are correct and that there is no unparliamentary language or an inappropriate expression which goes on to print. Okay. Now, that is the sort of standard which print media journalists maintained and still maintain today. And parallelly, you have the digital media platforms, the internet, the comment section, the various platforms where anyone can, make use of these platforms to disseminate their content. Well, there's certainly one very good aspect of this is that there's certainly more plurality, more opportunities for people, to express their views, and showcase their talent. But at the same time, there's the risk of people who don't deserve to be there, who don't have the minimum skill or acumen or even the decency to express themselves in a public platform. But those are the sections which randomly use their smartphone, upload anything they like, and add to the huge confusion, the huge surplus of information, and the information chaos which is part of today's society. Now, there is definitely the sufferer is the ordinary people who do not upload or post comments, but they are bombarded with lots of comments and posts and information, and which they are at a loss to make head or tail out of them. There is this absolute chaos and lack of meaning, and people simply are at a loss to understand who and what to believe. And that is where the role of fake news busters is so very important. And that is where media literacy is so very important. It's not enough to break the digital divide. It's not enough for everyone to have a smartphone. Equally, it is important to understand how to use that phone, how to ensure that the information being shared is appropriate, authentic, and even conform to the basic levels of decency which a public communication at the public domain at the public level demands. Unfortunately, that is something which we don't see, and it results in a lowering of the benchmark of society's cultural benchmarks, or the benchmark of decency and appropriate behavior, and that is something very very detrimental for society in the long run.
Sir, it's maybe gonna personal question, and I would like to ask at last. When you was as young like us, and after the finish your BA, what you want to be in the future?
Yeah, I definitely didn't aspire to be a teacher, and I was always into writing. Even as a high school boy, I remember publishing letters in the to the Telegraph newspaper, the Statesman newspaper, writing letters, small articles, and so when I got a break as a trainee journalist in a renowned newspaper, I promptly joined in, and since then I've been in this profession, first as a journalist, and now after 4 or 5 years as a professional journalist, I switched over to teaching in journalism. And of course, the world in our times was very different. The only mass media platforms were the newspapers, magazines, and of course television channels. And initially it was just Doordarshan, and after 1991 the private channels came up. And there was a lot of physical engagement, a lot of outward social life, something which we missed terribly, and something which we experience today, the loss of curiosity, the loss of drive. That is something which was not unexpected, which was not normal in our times. So someone who has lived through those times in the prior digital media age, and the pre-internet age, and in the post-internet age, and when we compare the two, there are lots of beautiful things in that life, in the pre-internet age, which we truly miss, while at the same time without acknowledging the fact that there's a lot of wonderful things which the digital age has brought, lots of opportunities, ease of life, comfort, and the easy availability of teaching and learning resources, something which was very difficult even till before 2005. The libraries, physical libraries, were the only source of your teaching learning experience. Anyway, that was that, and I'm very happy to have exchanged my thoughts with you. And yes, if there's any more question or
Thank you, sir, for giving your precious time for today's podcast.
and yes, thank you, Deha, and thank you, Prince. It was nice to be a teacher for the last 3 years. Wish you your luck. Wish you all my luck, all the luck, and I hope you continue with this podcast. I'm sure you'll create meaningful content.
Okay, thank you, sir. And those who are seeing this podcast, I hope you will learn something after seeing this podcast. So, thank you, sir.